Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
Now we go to Jr Majewski. Jr Majewski joins us from Ohio. He is an Air Force veteran. He is also a former congressional candidate running for Congress in Ohio. He has more than 2 decades of experience, specialized experience in the nuclear energy industry. But in 2022, when Jr Majewski was running for Congress, he was subjected to the most extraordinary dirty trick that I've seen in the 45 years that I have been in this arena. Essentially, a so-called research group that was fronting for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee illegally and improperly accessed his military service records and completely misrepresented them, planting a story with Associated Press, making it appear that Jr Majewski was guilty of stolen valor, and destroying his campaign for Congress, where he was leading prior to this fake news attack. Jr Majewski, thank you for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. It's always a pleasure to be with you, sir.
I think I summed that up pretty well, but now let's tell them the good news. After this dirty trick was perpetrated on you, in which they essentially alleged that you hadn't served when you had served, they were forced to backtrack, weren't they?
Yeah, I continued to petition Congress after the election, and a House investigation found that not only mine, but the records of 12 other Republicans were illegally obtained by this same research group. And I then continued to petition the Air Force, and 11 months after the campaign was over, I was awarded the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, the medal that they accused me of lying about.
And the medal that you were, of course, eligible for based on your service.
Correct.
So, but the reason that we're talking about this today is that Kamala Harris's campaign last week attacked JD Vance, who I frankly think is not only the right candidate for vice president, but I really believe that, like Nixon in 1952, he's going to rise to the occasion. There is going to be a defining moment in this campaign in which he proves that he has both the mettle and the courage to be exactly the right man for the job. But they attacked J.D. Vance, saying that he supported a congressional candidate, you, who Kamala Harris's campaign says egregiously lied about his military service and claimed that he was deployed to Afghanistan when he never was. Quoting Vance as saying he was proud to support you despite learning of your stolen valor. That's a lie, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, they tried to do the same thing with the president, insinuating that he was supporting me when they knew that they were lying. And, you know, J.D. Vance and I had become close during his Senate campaign. He was up against some pretty tough MAGA America First Ohioans. And, J.D. Vance and I hit it off, and we talked about our time in service. And, you know, he knew just from interactions with me. And, you know, as someone who endorsed me during my campaign, you know, I found it my obligation to show him what I was producing to the news media. But, unlike the media, JD did not ignore it. And, you know, he spent the time to look through it and realized I was telling the truth. And when time came for me to run again, he was all in he was all for it.
You are, of course, probably Donald Trump's number one fan and supporter in the country. The first time I ever heard of you is because you essentially mowed your lawn or land that you own, so that from the sky it became a giant, like a Donald Trump billboard. It was like Donald Trump landscaping, I guess you would call it. Very cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2019, 2020, I was my wife and I support a couple of different veterans groups, and one of the veterans groups here, they take those that have been injured in the war, and they go on outdoorsman adventures. I guess you could say they go on hunting trips. And what it boils down to is I lost a bet, and I was going to paint the American flag on my lawn, which I had done the year before. But then we made a quick decision in the end to do the Trump 2020 logo. And we did that, and it made national news. And I was brought on to Fox and Friends. And from there, the president saw it and gave me a phone call. And shortly thereafter, probably about 7 or 8 months after that, I decided to run for Congress for the first time.
And I suspect you will run yet again. Right now, you've dedicated yourself to reelecting your friend, President Donald Trump, and I admire you for that, of course. This attack on you and on JD Vance is, of course, meant to distract from the fact that we now have a pattern of lies regarding Governor Tim Walz's service in the Minnesota National Guard. Yes, the Minnesota National Guard. And let's get into this because I saw on CNN where they said there's no evidence of that. No, actually, I read in the New York Post that the chaplain of the Field Artillery Regiment that Walz was assigned to said there was no excuse for him to have abandoned the National Guard, and he did so just before a critical deployment. He actually, in essence, went outside the chain of command to get a pass when he knew that his unit was being called up. What happened here?
I mean, it sounds to me like it was just plain cowardice. He was looking on to a better path, and he was entitled to the rank and privilege of being called a chief sergeant major. But in reality, he had absolutely no desire to serve with his peers that were in his unit. And I don't know if you've seen this, Roger, but I think within the last 30 minutes or so, his battalion commander actually released a statement on Facebook. And he really tells the truth about Tim Walz, and it's not pretty. It really is aligned with everything that JD Vance has said, and what the Trump campaign has come out and said, that he used the title as a stepping stone, and he has not been honest in his position as governor, nor during his time in Congress. He's essentially benefited from calling himself a command chief sergeant major when he really isn't.
I think it goes further than that. We have an audio where he talks about carrying guns in war. Let's play it.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
That's very clearly a claim of combat service. I carried in war. He actually testified before a House committee in which he claimed that he suffered from PTSD from his service in Afghanistan, but he wasn't in Afghanistan.
No, he didn't even come close. He was sent to Italy, and to me, that's detrimental to the people that actually did serve, that have suffered, and are still continuing to suffer from PTSD. When you have somebody with a national profile as Tim Walz, even before he became vice president, as a member of Congress, and as the governor of Minnesota, he's really doing a disservice to the people that he claims to support by embellishing his personal experience to further his own personal interests.
The real problem here is I don't think he was properly vetted. I think this was done very quickly. I think that their first choice was, in fact, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. I think, as I said earlier, that Barack Obama convinced Kamala Harris that taking Shapiro would cost them the large Muslim American populations in Michigan and Minnesota. It is very clear that she also looked at Mark Kelly, the astronaut, U.S. Senator from Arizona. I think that fell of its own weight when we learned that Kelly is actually the partners in a Chinese company, Chinese communist company that makes the kind of satellite spy balloons that Joe Biden let flow all the way across the country before finally shooting it down over the ocean after, unfortunately, all of the data, all the purloined data had already been emailed, or I should say, sent back by computer to Beijing. By the way, the experts tell us that that particular satellite balloon is designed to fly at much, much, much higher altitudes where it obviously would not be detected. The experts I respect tell me that the Chinese use literally hundreds of balloons. They're trying to put together a digital image of the United States at the same time that a disproportionate number of military-age single men cross into our southern border. So that kind of took care of Kelly. I think there was a brief idea that they could get this fellow, I think his name is Beshear, who was the governor of Kentucky, but Donald Trump is so popular in Kentucky, Kentucky could not be flipped. I think they even looked at the governor of North Carolina, the same problem. Then we came back to Walsh, but it doesn't look to me like they vetted him extraordinarily well. I think a number of these issue positions are truly problematic. This guy, soft on crime, waited 3 days before calling in the National Guard when the Twin Cities were burning, ignored the mayor's request, then afterwards blamed the mayor. Yet this whole meme created by those who are trying to perpetrate Kamala Mania on us that JD is weird, but Tim Walsh is just a regular guy. This guy is as strange. He acts as strange. Just his body movements. He seems very excitable. I think a guy who wants to put tampons in every public men's room and in the boys' room in the public schools. I'm sorry, but I think that's weird. That's just weird.
Absolutely weird. And, if you parallel that to what JD Vance has done, during his short tenure in Senate, I mean, he's fought for the Ohioans that were impacted by the derailment in East Palestine. And that's a site that the Biden administration totally ignored, right? JD Vance caused a lot of attention to that. He's actually passed legislation, the Railway Safety Act, which is going to further mitigate any train derailments. He's been tough on China. He's been tough on big tech. And he's also fought illegal immigration at every step of the way. And he's introduced legislation that would prevent our taxpayer dollars to fund the health care of illegal aliens. He's cracked down on illegal visa overstays. I mean, JD Vance's his entire time in the Senate has been, totally aligned with what, the America First movement has been about and what the American public are demanding out of our elected officials.
I think the attacks on JD Vance are born of elitism. They're born of snobbery. He came up the hard way. He had a hard scrabble background. He has earned everything that he has. He does believe in family values. Yes, he does favor a child tax credit, which of course Kamala Harris was opposed to. I really believe, by the way, he's the same age Richard Nixon was when he joined the ticket with Eisenhower. I loved it when he went to Kamala Harris's plane and called her out because she's trying to duck interviews, no one-on-one interviews, no press conferences. I think this is going to turn out to be one of Donald Trump's more brilliant decisions. I think I'll be borne out about that. We're going to go to a quick break here. We're listening to Jr Majewski, Air Force veteran, who was viciously smeared by the Associated Press and the Democrats in an illegal, illicit, dirty trick, but who has bounced back to be completely and totally exonerated, and who is now dedicating his political activity to electing Donald Trump and putting him back in the White House. Also, I'll remind you, we are going to be taking your calls again. 848-949, 848-9222, 848-9222. Just don't go away, because, folks, we'll be right back.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
We're back here with Jr Majewski, who is a proud Air Force veteran, a man subjected to one of the most vicious, dirty tricks I have ever seen, which I believe cost him a congressional race. He was closing in on Mary Kaptur, who has been there way too long, basically a stooge for Nancy Pelosi, who controls her vote on everything, who is, I think, I'm ashamed to say, Hungarian, as I am, but it was time for her to go. It's still time for her to go. And I don't have a feeling, JR, that your political career is not over. I think your time will come. And what they did to you, as President Trump himself said on Truth Social, was atrocious, was outrageous. It is extraordinary now what they're trying to pull, this creating what I call a psyop, where they're trying to say that, first of all, that we're weird. No, yeah. I would say they're weird. When you have an admiral who's a man but wears women's clothes and heads the Department of HHS, no, I'm sorry. I think that's weird. Sorry. And it's amazing the way they have really tried to undercut JD Vance. I think they're making a huge mistake. I think it was the right choice, mainly because, and there are some other good men and women considered, but JD Vance has proven in the Senate he's not an establishment country club Republican. He's not an establishment Republican. He is an America First Republican. He's a Make America Great Republican, and he clearly has an enormous amount of courage. I think those who denigrate him make a gigantic mistake, and I really do think much of it is cultural. These elitist progressives, they really look down on people who at one time had to make a living with their hands. They've gone from being the party of the workers to being the party of the elites.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, Roger. You're exactly right. And JD Vance is the first post 9/11 veteran that nominated by a major party, and he's come from absolutely nowhere and nothing. Like he said multiple times, and the voters know that, and it resonates with them. I mean, when JD Vance was campaigning again here in Ohio, I watched him sit down and talk with, concerned mothers that, had children that were impacted and on some occasions even died from the fentanyl epidemic. And JD Vance has a close personal family relationship with that. And then I've seen him jump in a car and drive, an hour north and hype up a crowd of 1,000 or more people that were, excited to get out and vote for him and vote for Donald Trump. So, I mean, JD Vance is someone that resonates with the average American, but he's very intelligent, he's very intellectual. And, you don't come from Southern Ohio and Appalachia and rise to fame the way JD has by being a non-intellectual. And I think that's what scares the elitists the most.
In many ways, I think Tim Walz is kind of like the Gentile Bernie Sanders. I mean, he is as far out there, and he makes very little bones about it. He has a very strange career of cozying up to China. From 1989 to 1990, he taught at a Chinese Communist Party approved course in China through a program affiliated with Harvard. He says of his time there, "I've never been treated better in my life. Going to China was one of the best things I ever did." He said, "If China had the proper leadership, there's no limit on what they could accomplish." He said he developed a great admiration and close connection with the Chinese people after teaching there. From 1992 to 2003, Walz traveled to China every summer and even got married. And just as Bernie Sanders had his honeymoon in Russia, Walz had his honeymoon in China. He speaks fluent Chinese. I believe China is our greatest single threat in the world. He doesn't seem to see any potential adversarial relationship there. In 2010, he supported a stimulus package that approved $1.5 billion of grants and overseas to energy companies, including many Chinese firms. Where did they find this guy?
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But I mean, again, that's just a distinct parallel from what JD Vance has been doing in the Senate. I mean, he's been the voice on awareness on the Chinese government and the potential for them to impact Taiwan, while we've cheerleaded for the Ukrainian government and we've essentially, provided military advisory and weapons and funding to a war that, where we don't know where this money is being spent. And again, JD Vance has been the epitome of that. And that's what you hear from the American people. We are okay with our government helping, certain countries, especially those that we've considered allies, but we're not okay with sending billions of dollars without any form of transparency. And again, we can cheerlead the Ukrainian government all we want, but if we're not paying attention to the real threat of China and how they've invaded the U.S. economy, and JD's been strong on that. He's warned about how they've manipulated U.S. steel, and this is the things that the Democratic Party, they want the American voter to be oblivious to.
And I think we have to be absolutely clear about this, even though CNN insists that there's no evidence. Walz claimed in his campaign materials and his speeches to be a former Command Sergeant Major in the Army National Guard, despite the fact that he did not complete the requirements to hold that rank. He did retire as a Command Sergeant Major, but his rank was later officially reduced to Master Sergeant due to his failure to complete the rank requirements. When the Minnesota National Guard says Walz was not incorrect for saying he served as a Command Sergeant Major, but the former Minnesota National Guard members hold the opinion, as many of them said, that although he served at that rank, he never qualified for that rank. But most importantly, he seems to have lied repeatedly about actually being in combat. The real question, I guess, politically is, do the voters, I know the voters who are voting for him don't care, but the voters who are voting for Trump, of course, are outraged because it is indeed stolen valor. But will the voters in the middle care? Those who may be up for grabs, and that number's very, very small, in my opinion. I think that they will care. That is my belief, because it speaks to his character. The man is a congenital liar. And as every day goes by, we find more proof of it.
Yeah, I agree, Roger. I mean, if you look at my district here in Northwest Ohio, the 9th district, it's predominantly independent voters. And during my congressional race, when I was leading against Marcy Kaptur, and when the stolen valor story came out, my numbers in the polls dropped almost immediately. People actually consider stolen valor to be a very, very high crime, and it does. It's a testament to your character. It really shows what people are willing to do and say. And if you look at JD Vance's military career and how he's carried himself, I mean, he's a combat veteran. I know he was a correspondent in the Marine Corps, but the guy served in Iraq, and all you need to be qualified as a combat veteran is to receive imminent danger or hostile fire pay or be deployed in theater, all of which JD Vance meets. Those requirements he meets. But in the 5 years that he's been in politics now, you've not once heard JD Vance say that he's a combat veteran. He just simply states that he served in the Marine Corps. And I think that really is the true testament of character between these two men. One lies, one embellishes, and the other is very, very humble and respectful. I mean, and you can look at his legislation, right? JD Vance has introduced legislation to expand medical benefits for retired guardsmen and reservists. And in Ohio, he's nominated 30 students to military service academies. That's great. I mean, and that's JD Vance.
All right, I'm afraid we have to end it there. I want to thank my friend Jr Majewski, proud Air Force veteran, MAGA activist, and a great all-around America, for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.